What would you do if you saw a ghost in your room? Try talking to it and make it your friend, or run out as fast as you can. I think you'd choose running, because ghosts can do anything except becoming your buddy. But these scares belong in comics, not in reality. And you know this channel. We only cover reality. So, you're about to see 15 of the most weird people from old circus shows. They're not just terrifying in their looks. Their stories are strange and dark as well. So keep yourself ready while they appear on your screen. Number 15. Alice Doherty, the half-girl. Alice Doherty often walked with her small hands pressed tightly to her sides, feeling the soft, fine hair that covered her body like a secret coat only she truly understood. Known to sideshow promoters as the half-girl, she had been on display since the age of 2, a living puzzle that drew murmurs, gasps, and stares wherever she went. Yet behind the marketed oddity, Alice carried a quiet intelligence, noticing the smallest details in the bustling circus world. A performer's hidden limp, the crack of a wooden beam, the fleeting kindness of a fellow outcast. She learned to move gracefully, turning what the world called a deformity into something almost lyrical, a private rebellion against exploitation. Between shows, she wrote letters to distant relatives and collected small trinkets, tiny anchors of normalcy in a life measured by curiosity and spectacle. Even in the harsh glare of stage lights. Number 14. Timothy, tiny Broadbent. They say he could disappear behind a teacup, murmured a vendor one foggy evening in 19th century England, spinning tales as Timothy Tiny Broadbent shuffled past. The world knew him as the smallest man, though records were murky, and some suspected exaggeration. He moved with a peculiar precision, balancing atop crates and weaving through crowded fairgrounds with nimble agility, drawing attention without uttering a word. Fellow performers whispered about his sharp wit and uncanny ability to mimic animals, turning what promoters branded as spectacle into something quietly entertaining. He often traded jokes for scraps of bread or tips from curious children, turning his size into a currency of social cunning. Evenings found him tucked beneath the massive wheels of traveling carriages, sketching the faces of audiences who marveled at him without ever truly knowing him. In a world obsessed with gigantism and grotesque extremes. Number 13. Craini, Laotian-bearded lady. Whispers spread faster than the circus wagons themselves. Have you seen the girl from Laos with hair like a forest? Craini walked among the crowd with quiet dignity, her thick dark hair framing a face that some claimed bridged the human and the wild. In the 19th century, curiosity and pseudoscience collided, and promoters eagerly labeled her the missing link, parading her across stages from London to Paris. She observed other performers with a keen eye, sometimes mimicking acrobats' gestures or studying the ringmaster's timing, turning every interaction into a private lesson in theater. Audiences gasped at her hair, but crowd practiced subtle gestures, a tilt of the head, a delicate wave that revealed grace beneath the spectacle. Between shows, she wrote in journals she hid beneath her trunk, recording jokes, sketches, and names of sympathetic children who had stared too long with fascination rather than ridicule. Number 12. The Great Otto, Elastic Woman. You've never seen bones bend like that, muttered a stagehand, eyes wide as the Great Otto slipped through the narrow hoop like liquid silk. Her limbs twisted in ways that seemed impossible, yet each movement was precise, rehearsed, and strangely elegant. Born in the late 19th century, she toured alongside acrobats, strongmen, and fire eaters, quietly observing their techniques while inventing her own daring routines. Some nights she performed in gaslit tents. Other nights she practiced on damp wooden floors, fingers grazing polished beams to perfect a posture no ordinary human could replicate. Fellow performers often joked she was part rubber, part shadow, her body defying natural laws with each display. Otero's contortions became the centerpiece of oddity posters, but offstage she delighted in small pleasures, sketching her poses in notebooks, collecting trinkets from street vendors, and savoring rare moments of stillness. Number 11. Vasilei the Bearded Lady. Vasilei the Bearded Lady was born with a condition called hirsutism, causing excessive hair growth across her body and face, yet she turned what many saw as a disability into a stage triumph. Performing in 19th and early 20th century circuses, she challenged audiences' perceptions of gender and beauty, standing as a living example of the extremes of human variation. Vasilei's beard alone was measured in inches, groomed carefully for performances, and she combined it with elaborate costumes to create a striking presence that drew large crowds. She often collaborated with other sideshow performers, helping contortionists and strongmen choreograph routines that highlighted both their talents. Offstage, she lived quietly, meticulously documenting her appearances and occasionally teaching younger performers how to present themselves confidently before an audience. Her fame spread across Europe and America, but unlike many exploited performers, she negotiated better compensation than her peers. Number 10. Elizabeth Green, the Stork Woman. In a crowded Parisian sideshow in 1925, a tailor noticed a model of unusual proportions peering from the wings. Elizabeth Green, with limbs so long and delicate they seemed almost carved. She moved with careful precision, not because audiences demanded it, but because her skeletal structure required unusual balance for simple gestures. Feathered costumes accentuated her height, but Green's true skill lay in subtle theatrics, tilting her head, shifting weight, elongating her fingers, making her stork-like silhouette a living study in geometry. She often shared practice space with contortionists, learning to time movements in harmony with others, a coordination rarely noted in sideshow publicity. Scientists and photographers occasionally measured her for journals on human variation, yet she treated the sessions with quiet amusement, posing with exaggerated grace. Unlike many contemporaries, she preferred paper sketches over diaries, annotating angles and gestures rather than emotions. Let's move on. Number 9. Franz the Human Frog. In the mid-1800s, a traveling circus in Vienna advertised a performer who could leap like a frog without leaving the ground. Franz, later dubbed the Human Frog, had an extraordinary ability to fold and bend his body into extreme positions, making his limbs appear jointless and amphibious. Unlike contortionists who emphasized elegance, Franz often incorporated sudden, jerking motions that startled audiences, blending physical flexibility with elements of surprise. He frequently rehearsed with trapeze artists, testing how his body could fit into tight spaces or twist around ropes for new routines. Contemporary newspaper accounts remark on how Franz could fold his torso until his knees touched his shoulders, a feat that fascinated medical observers as well as theater-goers. Props such as low platforms and shallow boxes were tailored specifically for him, allowing him to demonstrate poses that ordinary humans could not replicate. Number 8. Cigarina. In a small London sideshow in the 1870s, an audience gasped when a performer lit a cigar without moving her lips. Cigarina, born with an uncanny tolerance for pain and extreme stage discipline, wired her mouth shut to inhale smoke through a metal tube, turning a simple act of smoking into a grotesque, spellbinding spectacle. The stunt was as much about control as it was about shock. She practiced for hours to avoid choking and coordinated each puff with dramatic hand gestures, almost like a choreographed dance. Fellow performers watched with a mix of awe and apprehension, often taking notes on how she adapted props, metal tubes, heat-resistant cloths, to make the impossible appear effortless. Her acts were particularly popular in industrial cities, where the combination of danger and novelty drew large working-class crowds. Away from the stage, She reportedly had a penchant for miniature mechanical toys, assembling intricate gears with the same precision she used in her performances, a surprising contrast to the terrifying image she projected. Number 7. Nanny Doss, Giggling Granny, Poisoner. In 1920s Alabama, neighbors often described a sweet, giggling grandmother baking pies and sharing stories on her porch. That woman was Nanny Doss, later infamously nicknamed the Giggling Granny, who over decades quietly poisoned 11 relatives across multiple states. Unlike performers in sideshows, Doss's notoriety came from blending domestic normalcy with lethal cunning. She meticulously acquired arsenic and other poisons, timed doses to avoid suspicion, and documented her actions in letters and diaries, revealing both planning and a dark sense of humor. Her movements between towns, seemingly mundane errands, masked a pattern of calculated murders that baffled investigators for years. She often targeted husbands and romantic partners, exploiting trust and affection while maintaining her cheerful facade. Oddly, her favorite pastime included reading romance novels, a juxtaposition of gentleness and malevolence. Number 6. Hugo the Tattooed Man. A single needle left its mark on Hugo's hand, the first of thousands that would eventually cover his entire body. Each tattoo represented a story, a myth, or a personal observation, turning his skin into a dense, intricate tapestry. Rather than relying on spectacle alone, Hugo experimented with ink mixtures and line thickness to achieve depth and contrast, often testing designs on small patches before committing them to larger areas. He collaborated with artists and apprentices backstage, discussing anatomy and how muscle movement would alter the visual flow of patterns. His limbs became galleries of natural motifs, geometric shapes, and historical figures, each bending and flexing with uncanny precision. Unlike many performers, Hugo carried sketchbooks on his travels, constantly recording ideas and refining techniques. In quiet moments, he would compare ink tones to the bark of trees or the shadows of buildings, treating his body less like a showpiece and more like a canvas for observation. Now get ready for number 5, Ethel Williams, the Living Skeleton. Rain-slicked streets of Chicago rattled under the circus wagons, and Ethel Williams carried her props carefully in a small crate, her frame so thin it seemed almost unreal beside the boxes and ropes. Known as the Living Skeleton, she performed feats of strength and balance that defied assumptions about her emaciated body, leveraging lean muscle and precise positioning rather than brute force. She often coordinated routines with strong men and acrobats, timing lifts and balances so that the stark contrast between her fragile silhouette and their bulk created a startling visual effect. Costumes were designed to exaggerate her elongated limbs, and stage lighting was carefully planned to cast dramatic shadows. Doctors occasionally examined her to understand how her skeletal structure supported such unusual strength, and she quietly studied anatomy diagrams to refine her technique. Number 4. Joe, the Human Bridge. During a summer fair in the 1920s New Jersey, a crate of barrels was stacked unusually high, and Joe quietly agreed to a challenge no one thought possible: support the weight of 4 men while lying flat. Unlike traditional strongmen who displayed raw lifting power, Joe specialized in precise alignment and core control, turning his body into a living structure. He worked closely with carpenters and stagehands to position beams and platforms so that his feats were safe yet visually spectacular. Fellow performers often tested him with unconventional objects, carts, ladders, even small wagons, refining angles and posture for maximum effect. Medical observers noted how his skeletal and muscular coordination allowed him to bear extreme loads without injury. Off-stage, Joe enjoyed woodworking, crafting miniature bridges in his workshop that mirrored his performance skills, a hobby that made his circus act less spectacle and more a study in physics and human endurance. Number 3. Lottie the Lizard Woman. A brass door creaked open backstage, and Lottie slithered through, practicing poses that mimicked the fluidity of reptiles she had studied in illustrated zoology books. Her nickname, the Lizard Woman, came from an uncanny ability to twist her torso, arch her back, and coil her limbs with sinuous precision, creating shapes few humans could replicate. Performing in the 1920s and 1930s, she often collaborated with acrobats, timing movements to fit within confined props like cages, hoops, and shallow tanks, giving her contortions an even more astonishing visual effect. Costumes were cut to follow muscle lines, enhancing the illusion of scales and elongation, while stage lighting highlighted shadows along her joints. Offstage, she collected sketches of reptiles and practiced poses silently, sometimes rearranging chairs and stools in her living quarters to experiment with spatial dynamics. Number 2. Elvara, the Bearded Lady. In 1912, a sideshow inspector in Cincinnati noted something unusual. Elvira's beard grew in an irregular, almost fractal pattern, different on each side of her face, which fascinated early dermatologists and photographers alike. She traveled with a small circus caravan that prioritized novelty over size, and her act relied on timing and contrast rather than theatrics. She sometimes simply sat on a platform, letting natural light highlight the density and direction of her hair. Townspeople debated whether her appearance was a medical anomaly, genetic quirk, or intentional exaggeration, and this speculation often drew larger crowds than her movements ever could. Occasionally, she would correct misconceptions directly, demonstrating how natural hair growth followed predictable patterns along jawlines and cheeks, a subtle mix of science and showmanship. Oddly, she preferred to ride in the last car of the caravan, claiming it gave her the clearest view of changing landscapes, a peculiarity that had nothing to do with performance but became her traveling signature. Number 1. George Costello, Ironjaw Man. Metal clamped between teeth, George Costello defied gravity in ways that left both spectators and engineers scratching their heads. The Ironjaw Man specialized in suspending himself from trapezes, cables, and even small vehicles, using only jaw strength to bear incredible loads. Unlike most performers whose acts relied on acrobatics or stage illusions, Costello's skill depended on precise alignment, bite pressure, and subtle shifts of body weight to control spin, lift, or rotation, an application of angular momentum few could master. Touring circuses in the early 1900s, he often collaborated with aerialists and jugglers, coordinating movements so that multiple performers shared tension and balance on ropes or bars. Contemporary newspapers marveled at the act, dubbing it Jaws of Life or Human Butterfly, particularly when decorative wings accentuated mid-air spins. Off-stage, Costello experimented with pulleys, weights, and custom mouthpieces, documenting his experiments to perfect leverage. History's most extraordinary performers come alive, revealing stories of courage, resilience, and human curiosity. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let friends see these tales by sharing, and watch conversations spark. Every like, comment, and share helps uncover hidden chapters that inspire and astonish. Stay connected for more astonishing stories by subscribing, and thank you for your support, curiosity, and engagement. It truly means the world.